Okay, hey everyone, I'm going to do this one without without the video of me talking, so you can't see me, so you can see all of the slide and all of the documents. So this is the explainer for how to do the argumentative essay. So you're going to need a few things to do this. For sure, you're going to need what's in today's planner. Okay, and the first thing is going to be the thing that's entitled Scan 2019 Q4 Samples. That's the several pictures that I'm going to go through today to show you different samples and different ideas on how to do this. So you'll need to follow along in that. So before you continue on, you need to make sure you've got that open, maybe on an extra device or a different device, or just make sure you absorb this and then see it on what you have in person. Also at that same spot, there is a 4-pager or 6-pager, I think, scan of tips and suggestions, and that is also helpful for learning how to write this. Okay, and then there's also a document summary, since you probably haven't got to the study of the foundational documents. The thing about this question is it involves the 9 foundational documents. It always will. And you'll see what I mean by that momentarily. In the review guide, or in the review section, these are already there, this document summary. It's also in the folder where all of the 9 documents are, and their particular information is from during the course. So that's there as well. So you need that Scan 2019 Q4 samples, and that's where we're going to start. This is the question. Now, it's an argumentative question, so you can see there, you can see a little explainer. So this is question 4. It'll always be question 4. And it says, the United States Constitution establishes a federal system of government. Under federalism, policymaking is shared between national and state governments. Over time, the powers of the national government increased relative to those of state governments. You should know that. That should be information that you already know, but they gave it to you there. The question then is, develop an argument about whether the expanded powers of the national government benefits or hinders policymaking. Now, here's the thing. You only have 2 choices. You have to say one or the other. So your argument is going to be that the expanded powers of the national government benefit policymaking, or the expanded powers of the national government hinders policymaking. Those are your 2 choices. That is it. You have to do that. You can't go in between. You can't do anything else. You have to do one of those 2 things. And then if you go through there, and this is in that explainer or the tips and suggestions thing that I mentioned, these are where you kind of look at these. You have to articulate a defensible claim or thesis. So we'll talk about that momentarily. This is essentially like if you've taken AP US or AP World and LEQ with a little bit of help. You have to use, if you go back to the question before, it says in the essay, use at least one piece of evidence from one of those 3 documents. You must use a piece of evidence from either the Articles, Brutus 1, or Federalist 10. Then if you go down in there, you have to use another one because you have to support your claim or thesis with at least 2 pieces. One must be from one of those 3. One can be from a different foundational document, and you give the other 8, or from your knowledge of the course. Okay, and you'll see how that's worth 3 total points, that section. Then you have to use reasoning to explain why your evidence supports your claim or thesis. That's a point. And then the last point is sort of the twist on the LEQ, if you know that from previous years. It's respond to an opposing or alternate perspective using refutation, concession, or rebuttal. So you'll see that. I'll show you that too. All right, so we're actually moving ahead to the next page, where I'm going to show you just the idea of a thesis. So there's a few pages of this on how to get the thesis point, then how to get those other 3 points, and how to get the reasoning point, and then how to get the rebuttal point. Okay, so I just wanted to show you this page real quick. The best way to do this, first of all, if you look on the left side, what you don't get points for is like restating the prompt. You can't say, I believe the expanded powers of the national government benefit policymaking. You can't stop there. That's just restating. You have to finish it. And the idea here is, and I've highlighted over there, the best word to use here is because. Okay? The expanded powers of the national government benefit policymaking because. You got to make an argumentative point. Okay? And they've made one there. So you make sure you do that. Otherwise, you can't get the thesis point. And as a note, if you do not get the thesis point, you can only get one other point of the total of 6. If you don't get the thesis point, you can't get any others but 1 point, and that's the first point for B1. Anything else is nothing. Your essay is essentially worthless if you don't get the thesis, so you've got to get that. All right, so let's move on to sample 4A. So you're going to go a few pages and you'll get to this one. And you can see the explanations in there at the end of the scan. There are the explanations for where these things come from. So if you take a look, I've highlighted everything. The A point, so the thesis is that highlighted point labeled A. All that other stuff in front of it, you don't need. This is a really complex essay. It doesn't need to be this complex. Okay, so don't think you've got to just write and write and write and write. You can get the points by writing efficiently. That's not short, it's efficient. Okay, so A point, the expanding powers of the national government benefits policymaking because there's your because blah 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 blah. Then you have to use that to defend it. So you get the B1 point. The Articles of Confederation, they've used the one from the list. That was one from the list. You get the B1 point. You get the B3 point. I'll go to B2 in a minute by using that to support your thesis. That's what that next thing is. The C point, which is the reasoning point, is gotten with that third area that's highlighted. You can see that and go ahead and read that when you get a chance. The B2 point is on the next page. Another benefit of the expanded powers national government is ensuring that civil rights are not infringed by the states. If you go back to the person's thesis, you can see that that was their other point. Okay. And then the last page, and again, you've got all of this stuff in here that's not necessarily necessary, okay? And then if you start at the bottom of this page and then you move on to the last page, you can see the highlighted area is where they got the D point, that refutation or the acknowledgement of another argument. You don't necessarily have to use one of those foundational documents like this person did, but this person did that, okay? Used a couple of them. Okay, but you don't have to do that. You just have to refute it, but you have to refute it with an explanation of it. Okay, so that's 4A. And again, all this information is at the end of this, you call it a packet, if you will, with where all of this stuff is articulated and laid out. So let's look at 4B. 4B is a lot shorter. It got 4 points out of 6. That last one got 6 points out of 6. It gets 4 points out of 6. You can see they shortened. They didn't do all that intro stuff. But this is fine. The A point, expanded powers of the national government, hinders policymaking by ignoring I can't read it, differences between the states and by ignoring how states vote. Okay, so it got one. Now you have to defend that. And it gets the B1 point. It uses a foundational document. I'm sorry, it does not, but it gets the B1 point. The first thing it says is uses some knowledge, and that gets it. The B2 point is there. For example, that's the best way to earn the B2 point. Use a words for example. For example, and it gives an idea. So that means you've tied that back to that particular thing. This actual C point is in between there. I've circled it. It's hard to find in there, but that's the reasoning. Okay, it doesn't get the third B point because it never uses one of those 3 foundational documents that you had to use. Just because it says Brutus 1 down there, it does not do a good enough job in explaining it. So it can't get one of those points because it doesn't use one of those 3 foundational documents that it demanded that you use. Okay, so no B3 point. So it's got A, B1, B2, C, no B3. And it doesn't get, and then it doesn't get the D point. Okay, because they didn't try it. If you look at this and you finish it, you read it, they don't even try. They don't try the D point, but it still got 4 out of 6 without even doing one of the things. So it didn't attempt to do the D point. All right, the last bit then, sample C, easier to read. Sample C is going to be a 2-pointer. It goes through all that rigmarole at the top to do whatever it does, and then the last sentence there that's highlighted in the middle, these powers of national government hinders policymaking since it gives too much will and power, which takes away from the power of state governments. Okay, gives the national government too much power. So there they did it. Is that they used since instead of because, but that same idea across there. Okay. It doesn't get Brutus 1 if you're wondering why. It talks about Brutus 1 there. It doesn't get Brutus 1 because it doesn't talk about federalism. The question is about federalism. And this just talks about national powers, and it talks about Congress and presidential vetoes and things like that. That's not federalism. Federalism is the shared power with the states, right? So nothing there. It doesn't get any of the B points. It doesn't get any of the C points, or it doesn't get the C points, but it does get the D point. I didn't highlight the whole thing since that would waste the highlighter, right? On the other hand, some people believe expanded power national government benefits policy all the way to that policy making words at the end where the last word I've highlighted. That gets the C point. I'm sorry, the D point. So you can see all of that. All right. So your assignment is to write this. Now, just if you read the instructions, it's very important. A couple of things. You've got to make sure you give it to me in a way that I can edit it, not just give me permission to read it. I have to have edit permission because I'm going to edit it. So listen carefully. I'm going to send it back to you because this is a summative grade. I'm going to give you a chance to revise it and then turn it in for an improved summative grade. Now, very important, you have to do this on time or I'm not going to give you that option or that ability. So on time is at the end of the day tomorrow. Okay, the end of the day tomorrow is the end of the day Wednesday, 4/21. Okay, the day the assignment is due, that has to be in by then. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to revise it because we're not going to have time. All right, so there we are. Make sure you look at this assignment. You can re-look back at this, look at the handout essentially that I gave you. That's a scan, and go from there. And good luck. Excuse me. Good luck at that.